and welcome for those who joined us here at Sanofi's booth. We're very excited to talk about the great innovations that we have to actually improve people's lives. Thank you very much for being with us. Let's continue our journey today with AI for better care, reducing missed opportunities in diagnosis and care. And for that, I just want to check that everyone is in a great, fantastic shape. Are you in a good shape? That's good, fantastic. I just want to always make sure that everything is fine. And somebody is looking like me, right now. So what is she doing? At Sanofi, we're happy, we're energized, and we want you to be energized as well. So let's launch our session. And for that, please welcome the head of Digital Patient Experience, Fabrice Bocquillon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Happy to see you today, Fabrice, and let's dive deep into our session. But before, I just want to ask you one question. We're all potential patients. We're all potential caregivers. And I want you to tell us in which percentage you think when we are sick, and hopefully never bad, when we are sick, how much percentages can we reach our full treatments? Let's say from 100% of people, how much we are doing the whole treatment until the end? How many people do the whole treatment until the end? Is that 10%? How many say 10%? 50%? 10%? 50%? Okay.
A lot of 50s.
A lot of 50s. They're still young over here, less than 50s. What about 80%? What about 100? You take the treatment from the beginning until the end? Nobody says 100, huh?
Yeah.
So what's the response, Fabrice?
Well, the response is barely 10%. Actually, there are no two patients who are the same, no two journeys who are the same, but there is something that is very common, is that people don't get treated correctly, right? By the time people have been diagnosed and prescribed with something, we already lost 70% of them on average, right? So only 30 people will even get the right prescription. And it's not the end of the journey, because once you have been prescribed, you need to take that prescription, you need to get the product, you need to inject yourself maybe, and then we lose again at least a third of those people who are never starting the therapy. And then you are there, you're on therapy, and you're starting feeling good, and maybe you think you're treated, and you start not taking your product as you should, and we lose again half of those people. So it's pretty unbelievable to see the data that for 100 people being diagnosed with something, only 10% of them are going to receive the full treatment that they should take.
And you have created a special tool, I understand.
Yes. So actually, as I was saying, no two patients, no two journeys are the same, right? We are all different. Look around each other. We are the patients, we are the people. However, there are really 4 moments that matter and which are making a difference in that journey. The first one is getting diagnosed right? Not being just diagnosed with something wrong, but understanding what the real diagnostic is. The second one is what we call the finding step. It's finding the right therapy, making sure that the right patients are not getting a treatment, but not just the right treatment, but the best treatment, right? And once you get there, there is that onboarding step, which not so much in France, but in many other countries can be very difficult. Think about if you are in the middle of Africa and you need to go to an infusion center by walking 2 days, right? That's kind of a barrier. And once you get there, there is that adherence, making sure that people understand that they need to follow through and get to the end of it. And we act at each and every single step.
In practice, what does it mean exactly as you created this special technology for that?
Yes, so what we did in practice is to create a team that is now dedicated to it. with that mission that is here on the thing. No one left undiagnosed or untreated to the best standard of care. And we have not developed one tool because all the journeys and steps are different, but we are creating a series of specific tactics to address those specific steps. And actually, that's what we are going to show you some of today.
Let's have a look. Yes, and actually, how many diseases have you diagnosed? In how many countries also you were talking about being in a remote place? And what about Accelerator? Tell us more.
Yes. So let me give you a few examples along that journey. The first one is called Accelerator, and it's purely a diagnostic tool for rare diseases. Right? So far, Accelerator has been implemented in France, in Morocco, in Egypt, in South Africa. And now that we know it's really working, we are looking into scaling it up as fast, as aggressively as we can in other countries.
That's great. And how many actually rare diseases are known?
That's a good question. And that's an important reason why people don't get the full treatments, right? They are known to science today, depending on sources. There are around 8,000 to 9,000 diseases, rare diseases, many more diseases, right?
That's a lot, yeah.
And we are able only so far to to diagnose 270 of them. So again, we are just starting. But think about that in terms of practice of medicine. 100 years ago, you are taking the brain of what is called a physician, and you are saying, hey, you need to understand 100 diseases and 100 therapies, right? That fits in a brain. That fits in a good trained human brain. Today, we think that with the same model, same human brain, we can fit 10,000 diseases, 100,000 therapies, and that they are going to be able to understand all of it and always systematically apply the best treatment. The model has reached a limit, right? It cannot work. It's beyond the capacity of a human, even well-trained.
Let's take a specific disease, Fabry disease, to have an example so that it's concrete for everyone.
Absolutely. So what we were showing just before is called Accelerator, and it's a generic tool to try to pre-diagnose therapies. But then you want to refine things. You want to make sure that you can do a targeted diagnostic. And that's why we don't have one tool, but many tools. So if I take the example of Fabry disease, on average, it takes 20 years to diagnose a Fabry patient, between the onset of the initial symptoms and the time those patients are fully diagnosed. 20 years. So those people are living sick for 20 years without the right treatment, and sometimes without really knowing what's wrong with them. So what we do with AI engines such as Fabry is that we apply statistics on vast amount of data to try to understand what are those risk factors and try to apply them to the populations in different regions to identify pockets where we may find patients. Once we have found one patient, because there is a genetic component to the disease, we proceed to screening. We offer the screening to the entire family, actually. And with that type of technique, we move the needle from sometimes 8 years to 10 minutes in terms of pre-diagnostic. And once we have found one patient, on average, we find 5 more patients just in days. Right? So it's completely transforming for people.
So I understand this is a very effective strategy, actually, that you're using. And once the patient has been diagnosed, what happened next?
Yes, so let me move to what we do on the finding step with generative AI at that stage. As I said, right, you diagnose people, but then the physicians, the hospital need to be able to apply the best treatment, not just a treatment, not just a right treatment, the best treatment. And there are many reasons, again, why this sometimes fail through. If you need to drive 4 hours to an infusion center, that can be a problem of scheduling. If your physician doesn't know that under uncontrolled flares of eczemas after years of asthma, you need to switch therapy to a biologic, they may not know. So we have tools, again, here, this one is called Medis, where we do the statistics. This one does statistics, again, the hospital systems, and provide a response, say, okay, here we see that those physicians may not be correctly trained. Then we send one of our physicians to tell them, hey guys, we have seen that at your hospital system, maybe you would like to consider this and this as a next step.
And what type of issue or, let's say, problem are you solving on that step?
Well, we are solving problems such as people or physicians, healthcare professionals not correctly trained, people realizing that some people in some pockets of regions are not covered by the healthcare system, and many others, actually.
And tell us, do you also apply targeted strategy for this step for different actually diseases and therapies? You took this example.
Yeah.
What about others?
So it's the same, right? At each and every step, we have more generic tools to try to pre-diagnose, pre-find, understand what's going on, and very targeted one to bring a very specific response. So this one is an example in hemophilia. So ATTP is a thrombotic event. People end up in the hospital. It's a very rare disease. The hospital system, 99% of the time, doesn't even understand what's going on with the patient. They are bruising everywhere. They are all purple. It's very scary. Many patients die within 72 hours without even being diagnosed or understand what's going on. So here we apply geofencing, and we look at what the physicians on the internet, on Google, are searching for, and at the same time, what type of blood results have been submitted in the regions into blood work labs, right? And by this, we can say, hey, here in that generic area, in those 1 kilometers to 3 kilometers, we know that somebody might be having a thrombotic event, an hemophilic thrombotic event. So then we dispatch our own physician until we find the physician and tell them, hey, this is what we saw in the lab, this is what we saw as a search pattern on Google in that generic region. Do you have someone right now with these symptoms? And so it's quite amazing because that AI agent, we started it 2 years ago. We have been able to find more than 68% of the patients that have been found in the world have been found by this algorithm in hours instead of generally 8 days on average. So very, very transformative.
Very efficient. And tell us, you have been diagnosed, you have the prescription. Why on earth it doesn't reach the full treatment? I don't get it.
Yes. So everything we discussed so far, you're not a patient yet. You're a consumer. You're seeking for answers. You're seeking for diagnostic. You're seeking for something to answer your problem, basically. Once you have been prescribed with something, you become a patient, right? And you might think that it's the end of the journey. It's actually the beginning of a second phase of the journey. So again, in France, very, very robust healthcare system, not the same everywhere, right? Including in very developed countries, Canada, US, Japan, and others. People may have affordability issues. They may wonder, hey, I may need to pay a portion of that treatment. How much is it going to be? And sometimes they are just being scared about the cost, or being scared of, hey, I will have to inject myself. I was diagnosed with pre-onset diabetes, or I was diagnosed with a very strong form of asthma. I will have to inject myself, which can be very scary. So again, here as well, there are many reasons why people are going to discontinue, not on board on the treatment or discontinue it early. So what we are doing is that, again, the logic is get the data. With the data, generate the insights. With those insights, take the decision and engage the right people at the right time. So that's what we have been doing. And we have a platform at that stage, which is called iCare. And that is our foundation to harness that data and generate those insights with AI. And that AI engine that is running at scale is called NBI, for Next Best Intervention. I'm going to go full force. And I know she's here around.
Firuze will be speaking about that at 2:45, actually, how you use AI for the right patient and the right action, and it will be later on.
Absolutely. So if you want to see all the details or hear about all the details, Firuz will be here this afternoon on this one. But again, the principle is always the same: data, insight, engagement.
And Fabrice, with all these AI tools, do you interact with the patient eventually, or what happens?
So our approach, we are a pharmaceutical manufacturer, right? So our approach for decades has been to engage directly with the healthcare professionals. But we are trying to shift that paradigm to adapt to what we call consumerization. As individuals, we are all used to interact with a phone, with an app. We may not want to have to take an appointment in X days from now at a given time to go see a physician just to have an answer. So we want to respect that. And actually everything I presented basically so far, we are now channeling it into what we call a digital companion. So that one is not an AI engine, it's an app, it's a container. It's over there. You can go see it later on.
It's indeed very interesting.
And what we do, we use it as an anchor so that we can engage directly with the patient. They can ask us questions. They can be called back by a human agent. And very soon we are going to channel our AI directly into it so that they can have meaningful conversation with an AI nurse.
And how many people are already using this app, and where?
Okay, so if I look at the global platforms I was presenting before, what we call eye care, we have a bit over 1.5 million patients on it right now. The app itself, which is the consumer part of it, is very fresh. We have 18,000 patients in the US. We have 200 patients in Germany, and we are about to release it in the weeks to come in Greater Gulf, the Emirates, in Japan, and right after in Italy.
And tell me, maybe sometimes we think that technology is not very easy for elderly people. Is that, what type of people, what age range are using this app?
Hey, that's a very...
Because we're thinking about younger generation. We are still young over here, I insist.
So that's a good one, because all the time people come back to me saying, no, but that type of tactic is only for the youngsters, right? It's for the young people, you guys. But actually, with that data, right, we see what's going on. We know who we are engaging with. And more than 1/3 of the patients who are accessing our AI engines, apps, etc., are 65 years old or more. So, right, so I want to break that concept that technology is only for young people. This is absolutely wrong.
That's very interesting, and this is a series of apps that you have developed that help really to go better, to be more efficient. And let's take a few minutes just to summarize all the key actions you take to go along this patient journey.
So again, right, remember, we act at the diagnostic step, finding the right therapy, helping people to onboard, learn to inject, etc., and then make sure that they cope with the treatment to the end. That's the adherence. But in summary, we act on 3 levels, or 3 layers, if you wish. First, we are striving to reduce the diagnostic journey, right? As I said, Fabry, 20 years to get to a diagnostic. On average, a rare disease is 8 years to get to a diagnostic. With things like Accelerate or Fabry Find, we reduce it to under 10 minutes. Right, so complete disruption. That's number one. The second one is to close the care gap. If you cannot reach an infusion center, if your specialist cannot give you an appointment before 9 months and that kind of things, we try to find alternative ways so that we can accelerate the process. And finally, and that's more eye care, NBI, and the app, we are trying to empower people. Or Medis as well. Give, not replace the humans, if you were here earlier, but equip the humans and the specialists with tools that are going to help them do a better job quicker. And that's what we call empowerment here on that slide. Make sure that people have the right tools and the right information at the right moment.
Well, that's very exciting, and I think we will leave a few minutes for questions. Thank you. Great applause to you first. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Any questions in the audience? Do not hesitate. Fabrice is at your disposal.
Don't be shy if you have questions.
You're still here if needed. I just have a question. Did you have a challenge? Because as we said, the challenge was actually to reach more patients, I mean the full treatment. Is there any challenge in the process of creating these apps?
Well, I wish there was only one challenge, Christina. There are many challenges. I think there is no technology challenge anymore, and that's what has changed in the last 10 years, right? The technology is here, you just need to apply it right. So the first challenge is get access to the right data, right? Because there is a ton of data out there, but it's not always correct data. So data is the currency of everything we have been speaking about, right? You need the data. Without data, there is no AI. The second challenge, and I touch a bit on it, is really our legitimacy as a manufacturer to engage directly with people, right? There are ethical considerations that we apply, and we want to make sure that we do it right with ethics, with responsibility, and that's a big challenge.
Great. Any questions that came up? Yes? See, there's always one first question.
Congrats. You just earned a t-shirt.
It's open. You just open.
Okay.
You just have to bring it really close,
Okay, good. So thank you very much. It was very...
A little closer again.
Okay.
Thank
maybe
you.
I should talk too. So
A little louder. Thank you.
So it was very interesting. Thank you so much. I was wondering, because I own a little startup focused in ischemic stroke, neonatal and adult ischemic stroke, how Sanofi interacts with small companies like this, maybe to strengthen this AI potential that we all want to somehow pursue, but maybe we don't have the right tools. So I think this is interesting because it's very powerful, everything that you conveyed, but maybe how to access to this kind of developments.
So that's a good question. So I spoke about what we do. I didn't say about how we source it, right? So some of the things we developed ourselves with our data scientists. Again, there are a few around there. And because we believe that nothing exists on the market, we are very sure about what we want to accomplish, so we do it ourselves. That's what Emmanuel and Pius earlier spoke about. It's what we call expert AI. However, there are many things which are out there by startups, by bigger companies. So we also try to really understand what's going on the market and unpick the right partner. So we have bigger partners, right? The big names of the industry. I'm not going to mention them. But we also have something that is called Future for Care. And Future for Care is our innovation cluster. It's located in Paris, actually, and we have a VC process to onboard startup and start developing new minimum viable products with them. We can talk about that.
And we have another Future for Care in Germany also.
So, and Future for Care is just open in Germany, and we are considering, of course, to go across the pond in the Americas.
I think there was a second question over there.
Thank you, Fabrice, for the presentation. That was really clear and a real eye-opener. What would be your advice to a medical doctor or someone entering medical studies in his training to be able to be following and efficient around what we're seeing here?
Okay. That's a good one. There is a lot about learning and training on those systems. I didn't touch on that, but you can do a lot of things with your favorite, right? Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, whichever you want. But those models are very generic and they are not always very accurate. So the first thing I would recommend is to train yourself to understand what data you are manipulating. That's number one. Again, the data makes the difference, not the large language model, not exactly. And prompt engineering is a skill that is going to become essential to life science in general, right? Because if you ask the wrong question, or if your questions are not specific enough, the answers are basically useless. So there is a lot about learning to prompt correctly. Now, becoming more on the developer side of that ecosystem as a practitioner, as a physician, or anything like that, it's understanding how we train those systems. Because what I didn't mention as well is that all those systems, we train them. And that requires a lot of very educated people most of them being medical physicians, to reward the system, right? We give it data that we are sure of, and we look at the response, and then we reward the system to make sure, hey, you get 1 point if you give the right answer, a bad point if you don't, and it requires human supervision in that reinforcement training step. So this is clearly a new class of job that is going to emerge.
Do we have one last question? Yes, of course.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. I was wondering how you train users of the app to ensure that they're confident and use it correctly.
So we made a point to have no training on the app, right? Because nobody gets a training to use Google or to use an iPhone, and that's what we call the patient experience, right? We want to make sure that it's completely transparent and simple enough so that it's obvious how to use it. So we do a lot of user research, a lot of user design, and we are making sure that people can use it correctly without requiring any kind of training.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
question.
Any other question? Well, a great applause to you.
All right,
Thank you very
everyone.
much
Thank you,
again.
Christina.
Thank you, Fabrice.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and please don't hesitate to visit our booth. There are plenty of things. We have a GT3 car from McLaren. Just don't hesitate to visit that and understand why we're doing a partnership with a racing company. A great journey also, research from research development to the patient. Thank you very much for being with us. Bear with us. In about 18 minutes, we start again a session about augmented clinical trials. Enjoy. Thank you very much.